All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. It is the final race of a lovely triple header we've had to start off this 2025 Formula One season. It is time to predict the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Brandon, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Saudi Arabia, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's so high speed. It's just an amazing thing to watch a Formula One car go around that circuit. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. It's gonna be a great race.
It is an absolutely beautiful track indeed. We've seen some incredible qualifying runs around here over the years. We've seen some good racing here over the years. Hopefully, we see another great race this weekend as well. Let's kick off our predictions with our Podium Pusher of the Weekend. Who is your Podium Pusher of the Weekend for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix?
My podium pusher of the weekend is George Russell. He has had an incredibly consistent start to the season, and I expect him to continue that. Maybe he might even win. I don't know, but I think George is gonna have a great weekend, so that's what I've gone with him.
Okay, here's the deal with this. You're putting George as your podium pusher 2 weekends in a row. We talked about this before we started recording, so now we're gonna talk about it live on air with these people as well. He's been so consistent to start the year. You're using him as back-to-back picks. I mean, are we just saying another consistent George Russell P3 and we're gonna give him this point, or does he need to go above and beyond to actually get this podium pusher of the weekend point at this point?
I mean, I think a performance like last weekend, so like very nearly pole and a P2 would qualify it. But if he qualifies like, I don't know, P3, drives around to no man's land the entire race, then maybe not. But if he qualifies like P7 and then ends up on the podium, then maybe yes. So kind of case by case situation. But if it's just like great qualifying and then doesn't overtake anyone in the race, I don't know.
All right, I'll allow the prediction. That's fine. This is probably going to be one that we're going to have a debate on next weekend when we recap this race. So just as long as you're prepared for that, then we'll be fine. My podium pusher of the weekend, I went with Charles Leclerc. This feels like a pretty risky pick for me to do 5 points down this early in the season because Ferrari has frankly been terrible this year. But Charles had a great race in Saudi Arabia last year, drove around in third place all by himself. And so, I'm really going off last year's results. That seems stupid to me because Ferrari's car is way worse this year. But I'm just going on good vibes. I want to see a Ferrari man stand on the podium at some point this season. So Charles Leclerc, don't want to get too far ahead of myself and say who I think I predicted for P3. I didn't say that. Charles Leclerc is my podium pusher of the weekend for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good pick. Charles is a great qualifier. We've seen him have a lot of success in Saudi Arabia in the past, not just last year. So who knows? And maybe as they get more comfortable with the car and the upgrades they put on this past weekend, they'll continue to perform better. It's possible.
Well, it's pretty hard to perform worse if you're Ferrari based on the expectations that were set on you going into the season, but that's all right. A backmarker of the weekend, who have you gone with?
We're going with Yuki Tsunoda. I don't know, this is kind of just purely a vibe prediction. He had a great race this past weekend. Yuki is kind of an up and down driver though, and we haven't really seen a lot of that in Red Bull so far because he's only had 2 races, but I think Yuki might have a poor weekend and then he'll have to bounce back after. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think Saudi is unfortunately a track that could really hurt him when it comes to like confidence in that car because it is so high speed that if you just lose a little bit of speed in one corner, you're feeling that deficit down the long straights through the fast sections of this track. And so I think that's a pretty good prediction. I could see that coming true. I could see Yuki maybe taking a step back this weekend, unfortunately. My back marker of the weekend, I have gone with Lewis Hamilton. It's an all Ferrari start to this podcast for Justin. This is just one of those things where, I'm still not super impressed with Lewis Hamilton's performances so far this year. Qualifying has continued to be what has let him down. And, Saudi is a very quick track, but unfortunately it's not the easiest to overtake at. So I think if he has another qualifying that lets him down, he could find himself behind some midfield cars, find himself further down the field than he wants to be. Maybe that would hinder his progress on race day. So I've gone with Lewis Hamilton as my back marker this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, especially after this past weekend and just hearing him talk about the car and the lack of confidence that he seems to have is astounding and pretty sad to watch, even as somebody who I wouldn't necessarily ever claim to be, a super diehard Lewis fan, but as someone who loves the sport and loves seeing, drivers be successful, it's kind of sad to see Lewis be so not confident.
I think a small part of every Formula One fan's heart wanted to see Lewis Hamilton win an eighth in Ferrari, and I think we're all slowly realizing that that is probably not going to happen unless they perform some kind of miracle in 2026, which they could. And maybe that's what we need to convince ourselves is they stink this year because they're going all in on 26. But yeah, it is pretty sad to see Lewis's current state at Ferrari. Who have you predicted to take pole this weekend in Saudi Arabia?
I've gone with Oscar Piastri. Oscar's just been on quite the run these past few races, and I just can't predict against him, honestly. So I'm going with Oscar.
For similar reasons, I have also gone with Oscar Piastri, but even more so, this is one of the 4 races that he outqualified Lando Norris at last year. So I have even more reason to be confident in an Oscar Piastri pole. He's got to be riding high on that confidence. He's performed incredibly well this entire triple header. So we're both going with Oscar Piastri on pole prediction, and it feels like a pretty safe bet. Our podium predictions, who have you predicted in P3?
In P3, I've gone with Lando Norris. Yeah, I think Lando just be a little bit off the pace this weekend. So
if P3 is off the pace for Lando Norris, then yeah, I mean that is what it is. It's still a podium, still keeps him in the championship fight, so that wouldn't be the worst weekend in the world. In P3, for me, big surprise here on this one. I have gone with Charles Leclerc. I think we're going to see a Ferrari driver stand on the Grand Prix podium for the first time this season, hoping that it's Charles Leclerc, because if he locks in that podium, I'm for sure and getting the podium pusher prediction point as well. So I'm going with Charles Leclerc in P3. Not feeling super confident about it. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Like I said, we've seen him perform well here in the past, and I think that, as they get more comfortable, I expect Ferrari to get better throughout the season, honestly. And, I think we're going to see a lot better of a second half to the season than we are the first half. So, I think Charles is a great pick from P3.
Man, already talking about the second half of the season for Ferrari, and we're 4 races, and this has just been a depressing start to the year for the team in red. In P2, I have gone with Lando Norris. This is simply a McLaren is the fastest team prediction. I don't expect that to change. I doubt any team is bringing any world-changing upgrades to the 3rd race in a triple header, and so, I think this should be a fairly easy McLaren 1-2 if things go their way, if qualifying all works out. This is one of those tracks where overtaking is more difficult, strategies more straightforward. So I'm feeling Lando Norris in P2.
Yeah, if qualifying goes well, it's a big if for McLaren right now, but
it really is. It really is.
In P2, I've gone with George Russell, just because I think he, to get that podium pusher point for me, he really needs to have a great weekend. And if he can qualify well, I expect him to finish on the podium.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine George Russell not finishing on the podium because he's got a 75% podium finishing rate this year. So certainly a great pick there for George Russell in P2. P1, I've gone with Oscar Piastri. I think we're going to see Oscar Piastri win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, take his first ever Drivers' Championship lead. It looks like he's got all the momentum, all the confidence. Seems like he's trying to stake his claim as the true #1 driver at McLaren. So I think he's going to win this weekend.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I'm also predicting Oscar to win this weekend. I think Lando's just kind of, he's shaky. He's just not as confident as maybe he was the beginning of the season or at the end of last year. And I think that's largely due to how successful Oscar's been. And Oscar has a car that can compete, and he's showing Lando that he's not gonna let Lando walk away with it. So I guess this is his time.
Yeah, I feel great about this Oscar Piastri prediction, but I hate that we both predicted him, because even if we get it right, I don't gain any ground on you, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. That's okay. I'll take what I can get when it comes to getting points this year, because they have been pretty hard to come by for me. My one push and prediction for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is that Ollie Behrman outqualifies Esteban Ocon. He is coming off of an astounding P20 in qualifying last weekend. That is the second time that Ollie Behrman has qualified P20 this year. So feels like it's bold enough for me to say that he's going to outqualify Esteban Ocon this weekend.
Yeah, that hasn't been a guarantee all season. So I think that's a great prediction. My prediction, I've gone with Liam Lawson is going to score points, which also has been a tough thing for Liam to do so far this year. So I'm thinking that maybe Liam will kind of put it all together and score some points. So
Hey, that V carb it's a good car. So
it
I
is.
think it's possible. Obviously, we saw them not have the greatest weekend in Bahrain, but midfield is so chaotic and close that it switches around the order from track to track. He's getting more comfortable in that car. So it wouldn't be the most surprising thing, but certainly feels bold based on how he has performed so far this year. The fans at MattJ_23, Lewis Hamilton outqualifies Charles Leclerc. At it's.me.marcus, Kimi Antonelli first podium, and at Grace in real life, at least one red flag sometime during the weekend.
Those are all possible for sure. So, especially red flag, I think that's a great prediction with Saudi being such a tight track. There's a lot of walls, so red flags tend to happen more with those kinds of tracks.
Hey, should we allow that to be a point, even if it's a red flag during like practice? Because they'd be throwing red flags when it would be like a double waved yellow to go pick up some debris or something.
I mean, I think if it's like a legit red flag during practice, absolutely. Like if somebody puts it in the wall and there's debris everywhere, then yeah.
All right, I'll allow it. It seems a little easy, but I'll allow it for sure. That's a good prediction. That's a good prediction. That is all we've got for our predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Before we get out of here, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
I'm just excited for Saudi. It's going to be a great race. It's a good track. Like I said, it's one of my favorite to watch racing at. And of course, it's a night race, which is awesome. So can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, it means we don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to watch Formula One, which is always great with me. Can't wait to see what happens in Saudi this weekend. But as always, thank you for watching or listening to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. We will be back next week to recap the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Before you go, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all of the things. And until the next one, have a great day and God bless.